Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST, every day of the week, where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make money by leveraging the internet and the latest technologies. I'm your host, Bchek. I'm joined by my legendary co-host, Legendary, and we have a stacked panel today of some very good friends of the show. And we are just feeling like not only do we have a stacked panel, got a stacked audience too, a lot of excitement going on in the NFT market right now because there's a bit of an NFT mega pump, as Legendary has titled the show for today. But noting that there is this pump in the financial price of the assets which you hold. Just a reminder, friends, nothing that any of us say here is financial advice. This modern market is exceptionally risky. We do not know anything for sure. Please do trust your own judgment, exercise your own judgment, and proceed with caution. With that out of the way, Legendary, how are you doing this Tuesday, the 7th of November?
GM, doing excellent. It is a good day to be in the market of collecting JPEGs, so my mood couldn't be better than that.
I can tell you your mood can't be better because you're dressed very brightly. Is this
Absolutely,
what
yeah.
is this what's going to happen?
Yes, once the market is up, once we are back, I can finally wear the crypto merch like that I haven't worn in a long time, like today. For those of you watching on YouTube, I am wearing that bright neon yellow Adidas Apes G-Money Punks tracksuit, and it's definitely not for a bear market day. It is for a day like this to celebrate it. I mean, I did wear it to a Christmas party last year as well. That was a bit of a unique experience, let's call it like that. But other than that, I'm not getting much wear out of it.
Yeah, I can see. I'm just going to share it on Twitter because I think people will want to see. People want to know what the bull market looks like. People want to know. They need to know what it looks like. And I'm just wondering, like, how many other garments do you have that symbolize the bull market to you? Like, are there many? Like, how long can the bull market go on for? How long can your wardrobe cope with a bull market?
It depends how you count it. I mean, I do have this tracksuit, for example, like 4 times. So I have multiples of everything. The rest of them are just boxed. But if the bull market would be back and would last for longer, I think I can make it through a reasonable amount of time with hoodies, tracksuits, beanies, hats, caps, everything else. But definitely not prepared for a multi-year bull market wardrobe-wise.
Well, maybe that we can do something about that as we as we move forward. The whole point is hopefully if we're moving into one, maybe you can pick up a few new acquisitions as we move forward. Jack, welcome to the stage. Jack is a significant NFT holder, as he is crypto and NFT exit liquidity. Great friend of the show. Jack, how are you dressed on this positive day?
I got my D Gods cap on, so that
Okay.
always NFT merch. There's never a day that goes by that I don't have some sort of NFT merch on.
Very good.
I did just want to pose a question to Legendary. Does this mean that you have enough tracksuits that even if you get like 4 people on YouTube, you could distribute those and it could become modern market merch? Like it could be the actual thing that everybody has to wear on the show in this bull market, because I'm game for that.
Definitely down for that. Definitely willing to run those A/B tests. Similarly, how Mr. Beast has talked about having the thumbnail mouth open versus mouth closed. We are going to run bright neon yellow tracksuit versus regular clothing. And I'm pretty certain the tracksuit's going to win that.
How many of these do you have, Legendary?
4. We can get 4 people on the video. Can bring him on to London next week, so we can start as a duo.
This can actually work. This could actually work. So you bring me one. Jack, come down from Liverpool, pick one up. Sammy, you know that you're going to be next up. What are your thoughts? Do you want one of these neon yellow? Is this on brand for you?
I'll make it on brand. That sounds absolutely fantastic.
This is going to be the top. This is the top, though. This is.
Yeah, if you thought Randy Zuckerberg's song, what was it, 2021, 2022, did mark the last top of the bull market, this is going to be the next one. Definitely agree.
For sure.
The Block Street Boys.
Oh God.
I think this is a sign to get into the show.
Yeah, we have a lot of options, guys. We have a lot of options. We're obviously a little bit giddy at the moment. Forgive us for our. I think it's a professional start to the show. It's just just tinged with a little bit of excitement because things are up, and we like it when things are up. So, but as you say, let's get into the show because we want to talk those numbers that we are mentioning. But before we do that, as always, guys, please help us out by clicking that comment button in the right-hand corner, where you can retweet the spaces so we can get as many people in here with all of us as possible. And as always, if you want to follow along, you can do with the snapshot. It is pinned up top. It has all of the information I'm about to share. So please do like it if you find that it brings you some value today. So let's get into it, starting with the price action. Floor prices today, CryptoPunks are up at 50 ETH. We've been speaking about them. They've been absolutely on fire the last few days, up 5%. Bored Apes at 28.5, up 2%. Mutants at 5.4, up 2%. DGods at 3.2, up 1%. Captains down a few percent at 4. Azuki's up 5% at 5.4. Penguins at 5, up 3%. Moonbirds at 1.9. Nouns at 24 ETH. A couple of huge sales. We have a CryptoPunk Zombie, which I'm going to touch on in a second, for 600 ETH. That was $1.13 million. And also a beautiful Tyler Hobbs Spiral Fidenza selling for 100 ETH. That is $189,000. So getting into the headlines, we have number one, Gordon Gonner buys Zombie Punk for 600 ETH. He said this was long overdue, going to take me forever to follow back every single punk who followed me today, but it will get done. Thank you for the warm welcome. He also says more foolishness tomorrow, aka today. Wonder what else he has planned for some more buys. Going to get into that in a moment. Number two, NFT market rallies aggressively. We've already talked about some major floor prices, but there were big moves across the board. We had Toads, Crypto Toads up 56%, On-Chain Monkey up 50%, Parallel Avatars up 48%, Treeverse up 44%, Block Games up 38%. That list doesn't even include another 10 projects, which pumped 20 to 30% today, including some big names. That is information from Tyler, who's always presenting awesome daily news as the day goes on. And finally, Cool Cats partner with Animoca Brand subsidiary to take Cool Cats to Japan. Potentially some manga coming out of this collaboration, which sounds really interesting. I don't know how much time we're going to have to get to that final piece headline today, because I suspect we'll be doing a lot of price analysis, a lot of price predictions, thoughts on why we're moving in the direction that we are. But guys, that is the headlines. That is the price action. Legendary, what numbers are you liking?
We like all the numbers, especially the Treeverse, Block Games. Since the pump even continued on them. If you look at Block Games over the last 24 hours, you reported at 38%. In the meantime, it's up to more than 90% gain over the last 24 hours. Same with so many more gaming projects. Same with the Skyborn Gems. Same with Mitaria, Shrapnel. All of them continue to move up. And for that reason, definitely the gaming numbers excite me most right now.
I love it. That's really important. I'm glad that you picked out the gaming, because I know you focus on the gaming a little bit more. I'd love to bring in Elisa to this conversation. Elisa is is always writing about Web3 gaming insights. She's a streamer. And the first time I heard her speak was on, I believe it was the ZTX space not so long ago, which Legendary was hosting. Thought gave some awesome insights in general on where gaming, Web3 gaming is going. So Lisa, would love to hear your thoughts on just that Web3 gaming ecosystem, and in terms of this price action that we're seeing, what you think the cause of that is, or where we might be going.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. Really happy to be here. It's such a good day. Web3 gaming is finally getting some traction and price action. Honestly, we haven't seen anything like this in like a few years. So yeah, feels like a long time coming. my perspective on it is basically people are buying because they're speculating on token airdrops. So literally just this morning, the Shrap token was announced to be listed and tradable on, I think, in like 1 or 2 days. I kind of knew about this, but I didn't think it would come so soon. I actually thought it would be more end of year. So yeah, everybody's buying up the Shrapnel operators now, basically speculating that if you own an operator, you will get some tokens. I also have this thesis. Same thing with Materia, I think. Same thing with block games. Same thing with raw passes. I think everyone's just buying it up. It
Same
doesn't
thing
really
with
matter if it's
everything,
all
basically.
yeah, like it doesn't matter if they've seen the gameplay or not. It kind of seems like let's say like because Shrapnel is like AAA, right? It's really different. So if you compare that to, like, for example, the raw passes, which, you know, we haven't seen any gameplay, and I think what it was is more like a competitive hyper casual, so comparable to, like, you know, Dookie Dash, Pixelmon, all those kind of games that we've been seeing with the leaderboards. They're very different, but it doesn't seem to change anything in terms of like degens buying in.
Yeah, I love the points you make there. And I wonder whether that's a recipe for disaster at some point, right? Like if it's true that people are not even checking the gameplay, not even checking anything, but they're just kind of, it's like almost like a tick box exercise at this point. It's like, is this a Web3 game? Does it have NFTs in their ecosystem? Is there likely to be a token? And then just pure speculation on the back of it. I guess, though, one of the reasons for that speculation is that there just seems to be a trend that is what the gaming ecosystems are going to do. So maybe that's a reasonable line of thinking to follow. Legendary, what's your thought on that? I know you were, did very well in the ZTX ecosystem, and you also mentioned, I can't remember the name, but you mentioned another one that you were buying over the weekend potentially, which I saw a thread on by Grail.eth, who's a very significant Azuki holder. What was your thought in that respect?
I think Skyborn is the one.
That's the one.
The heroes and the gems that I've been buying.
That's the one.
It's definitely a lot of speculation going on around token airdrops. You're perfectly right. The ZTX token airdrop was very, very successful. And token airdrops are like a super good tool for user acquisition. And it almost got to a point where like everything that you do in Web3 gaming now kind of has to be financially incentivized, whether that's a token airdrop, or even if you look at the Pixelmon, the mini game with Kevin that they're having right now, there's a prize pool for that going on as well. So you always have that base level financial expectation to be rewarded for doing something, collecting something, playing or testing something. And we had that ZTX space last week where we talked a lot about token design in games and how it almost got to a point that where everyone is doing token airdrops, you kind of have to play the same game to do the user acquisition. And it even gets to a point where it kind of takes away the strategic advantage and goes into a zero-sum game because everyone is doing it. But on the other hand, you still have to do it and keep up with it. So I do think that the token speculation is a big driver. One more perspective that I wanted to add is that we kind of see this, I don't want to call it the divide, but those two different perspectives with loads of people looking forward to games like Shrapnel, including myself, being the AAA game that Lisa mentioned it to be on the one hand. But on the other hand, all those like hyper casual mobile games, I wouldn't underestimate them, because if you look at how the mobile gaming market is growing versus the gaming market, the mobile gaming market has a way higher CAGR, so compounded annual growth, especially if you break that down for a big company like Blizzard Activision. Because Blizzard recently, as of 2 days ago, released a new mobile game, like a Clash Royale, don't want to call it clone, but like Clash Royale inspired game on mobile, Warcraft Rumble, using the Warcraft IP. And many gamers were like, why do you do that again? You did Diablo Immortal for games instead of a PC or console game that we've been expecting. Now you go for another mobile game. But if you look at Blizzard's revenue, there's two important points that stand out. So 91% of Activision Blizzard's net revenue is from digital online channels, so for in-game purchases or game purchases. And if you look at that breakdown, that's 4.2 bill. Out of those 4.2 bill, 2 billion are consumer spending in mobile games. It's the biggest segment. It's followed by 1.2 bill in PC and 1.2 bill in console. So that's an even split. If you count them together, yes, they would be about or around the size of the mobile gaming segment, but it is the mobile gaming segment that's growing the fastest and generating those companies the biggest revenue. So this is why you're seeing so many traditional publishers now focusing on those mobile games, on those hyper casual games, and going for in-app purchases. And this is also a trend that I think we will see reflected in the Web3 gaming ecosystem, because ultimately it is companies that are building products that they want to be profitable and make revenue on.
That's super interesting, and I think it's a really important point. This is not an officially announced piece of news, I don't think, but I remember a couple of days ago I reported in the snapshot that someone, that I can't remember which of the Yuga founders, announced that their next game has been in multiple years of development, and it will be a mobile one, and it will include various NFT assets from their ecosystem. So I think that leans into what you're saying, right? Like in the end, people will want either exposure to mobile, or that will be the main thing. That will be the main driver, because it's seen to be such a lucrative sector. Jack, your hand is raised, and would love to hear the thoughts of Whale and Sammy on this as well. Jack first, though.
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out. I think it was yesterday. There was a member on the show who called out OCM at 1.29, 1.2.
Jack, we're gonna get there. That's later in the show. We're gonna get
okay,
there.
okay. In which case, I will just say that I'm very happy for the OG projects who are also pumping in this market. Been another thesis that I think I heard on the show yesterday, but I'll keep my mouth closed for now.
Yeah, I don't remember who said it yesterday. It was someone, I can't remember who that was. But yeah, I think it was ultimately correct. Whale, welcome to the stage with us. What's your thought on this gaming thesis and the coins that people are ultimately speculating on that should come from the underlying NFTs?
Yeah, it seems like it's like the new meta we move in right now. Like I did a post about it yesterday. A lot of these gaming projects, and you guys already mentioned a few, are up really big. Like especially if you compare it to the quote unquote blue chip projects in our space. So I think it's definitely the hot topic right now, especially with these token launches. After we saw so many, or yet not so many, but we saw CTX being very successful. Meme Land, of course, it's not gaming, but they still did a token and it did very well. So I think all of this kind of plays into this narrative that we see right now. The question with new metas is always like how long it will be here to stay. But right now, there's no doubt that people are moving in that direction. So yeah, definitely interesting to see it.
Yeah, I like it. The key question, as you say, is the time frame. But I read another tweet the other day that made me think, and I think I was in agreement with it, which is that all of these projects have just been quiet for so long, or there are so many projects who've been building for so long. And all, remember 1.5, 2 years ago when the people were coming out announcing, saying that we're working on a game, saying that that's what we're building towards. Like at that time, no one in this space has the patience to wait this period of time, right? But I just think we're getting into a time period where, you can realistically expect some of those things to start shipping. So yeah, at a minimum, it feels like we're getting into the zone where people can start to get a little bit more optimistic that something's actually coming. Sammy, I want to come over to you in a second, but I just want to go to Elisa first because I think she had her hand raised and wanted to come in with a particular comment on something we've said.
Thanks, appreciate you for noticing that. No, yeah, I was just going to add on to Legendary's comment about mobile. If I was to speculate on something, I would definitely speculate on mobile games, not financial advice, but I do think they've got the biggest chance to hit mass market. I'm having more and more meetings with mobile game builders, and it's absolutely insane, like what's coming in 2024, 2025. Especially teams, building out from Southeast Asia. They're completely tapped into Web3 and they get it. They're building, like, I can't even explain like the quality of the product. Like we haven't seen that stuff yet. So yeah, the next 2 years are going to be very interesting. And one last thing that kind of like strengthens this mobile gaming thesis in Web3 is the fact that there's so much overlap between the countries that are most interested in crypto and NFTs and top markets by game downloads and revenue. So Southeast Asia, Brazil, but yeah, especially Asia, like China, Japan, like all of these countries are super interested in crypto and NFTs. Like they're not so that they don't like push against it so much as like the West, and they really like mobile games and spending. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of overlap there. That's interesting.
I like it. One immediate follow-up question that came into my head, remember Legendary of the two of us is the one who actually knows about the gaming stuff properly in this space. So the immediate question to me, maybe Elisa, you could go first, maybe Legendary after, is do we need to be speaking about these NFT Web3 gaming projects and dividing them into non-mobile or mobile, or can we expect all of them to have a mobile component at some point?
I think there's definitely teams that want to go mobile, and they're right now kind of like testing with the browser because there's still a lot of difficulty with adding Web3 elements to mobile because of like Apple Store restrictions. But yeah, hopefully that will change. So even games like, for example, Pixelmon's Kevin the Adventurer, like essentially I see that as a prototype and a test. Where like in the future they're looking to bring those games to mobile. But yeah, on the other side of the spectrum, there's also a lot of teams building for PC. But yeah, I think we'll probably see mobile first just because the games take not as much time to ship, not as much money, and the Web2 side is actually a competitive edge they have over their competitors, whereas PC is completely different.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks so much for that. It's really interesting. And yeah, thanks so much for that perspective. Legendary, I think we need, does this exist? I remember reading a thread from Hunter, maybe outlining some of the gaming projects that he was looking into, but does something exist where we can easily see which are the gaming projects out at the moment that we're interested in? And of those, which ones are mobile? I think that would be a cool angle for a thread. I'm basically asking, can you write this at some point in time? Do you want to do that?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. But also adding to that, and it's something that Elisa commented in the comments to the space, saying that from those hyper casual games, not many of them are actually on mobile right now. If you play something like Pirate Nation, you play it in browser. So many of them are browser games. And obviously it's easier to translate the browser game to a mobile game to come up with an app for that. So if you want to do the divide, you would have to probably look at the PC console first games, and then the mobile, potentially mobile games to also include the browser games somewhere, especially also as some of the browser games do run on mobile. They're not officially supported, but depending on your phone and the browser that you're using, you could run it on mobile. I think that's the case for Pirate Nation, for example. So it would be an interesting divide to make. And also to add on that question that you had earlier in terms of, going mobile, going PC first, or can you do both? On the other perspective to take there is the strength of your IP. Again, if you go to something like Activision Blizzard, who started obviously with PC games, started with even before World of Warcraft, had the RTS, the real-time strategy games with Warcraft 1 to 3. And once they solidified their IP, then they also went for the mobile games. So they're obviously using the Warcraft IP for Warcraft Rumble, for Hearthstone, the digital card trading game. So I think once you establish that foundation and have the strength of the brand and the IP, you then can just move to other platforms as well, whether you go mobile first and then try out a PC game or go the other way around. I would speculate that PC console to mobile is the more typical approach, just because mobile game is a relatively recent thing compared to traditional PC or console bound gaming. But I definitely see a world where a publisher can have games for multiple outlets or gaming devices. And one more addition to make on that, that's very, very interesting to me. If you look at Apple's never managed to really get publishers to port games from PC or console to Mac because it's still a minority that uses Mac. from not in the general population, but speaking gamers specifically. But if you look at something very interesting that's been happening at Apple, is that they are building tools to port AAA games. They recently ported Baldur's Gate, which is a bestseller AAA PC game. I think it's also a console game, and I'm a PC gamer, to Mac. And you have the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which has more teraflops, more computing power than a PlayStation 4. So now they ported Resident Evil to it. And the standout thing that Apple did here is that they unified that porting process, because porting to Mac was not as appealing for game developers. But if you now use the Apple architecture to port a game, you can simultaneously port it to Mac, to MacBooks, to iPads, and to iPhones, and suddenly have an access to a way bigger market. Because while it's true that not many gamers have a MacBook, almost everyone, especially in the States, has an iPhone, and that's a mass market that you can address. And this is why many people are seeing more and more AAA games now starting to come to Apple, being ported there. And many also speculate that iPhone in the next 2 to 3 years just could be the #1 mobile gaming device and completely, blow the portable Asus switches out of the water once they establish that porting funnel for traditional gaming studios to have their games on iPad, iPhone, and Mac OS.
Interesting how those small technical adjustments or technical capabilities can have huge kind of second order effects for the market down the line. Really good stuff there. Sammy, want to give you a chance to come in on this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think just a couple of points around timing wise. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of projects that they're building during the bear and they're waiting for that sentiment shift, because it's easier to launch something when people are up because they're more willing to spend. So I think just around that point, just the timing, it's becoming you've got Bitcoin ETF narrative coming through. You've got a number of other games coming to market. I think I made a post recently around sort of 50 odd games, Web3 games going live last month. Compare that to 100 or so being discontinued in April. It feels like it's a bit of a shift, and there's a lot still in development. So there's a lot more upside to come. Just on the mobile games, I definitely agree with Elisa on that. I think what was 7 billion smartphones worldwide. So going down that mobile gaming route, you obviously give a lot more global, universal accessibility to the game. Whereas I don't even have a desktop. I've got a laptop, but I know even friends that in the UK that just don't have laptops. They've got their work laptops, but they're not allowed to play games on them. So it's just interesting.
Yep, very good point. The mobile is the gateway to everything now. I was literally walking around this morning, kind of off topic, and just observing, because I went to the gym in the morning and then my train to get back was cancelled. So I just walked back kind of in my own world, just watching people, and just everyone is just connected to the phone. We know this already, but it was just something that struck me again today, because people almost kept walking into me because they just were connected to their phone. So I agree. Fair point there. Jack, final point on the gaming side of things, because then we want to circle into the Gordon Gono buy of the huge CryptoPunk, what he might be buying next, and just the general outrageous market rally across the board for various NFT projects.
Yeah. So I really agree with all the sentiment that's been shared. I think for social gaming, it's like realistically, it's one of the biggest NFT Trojan horses that I've heard in the space over the past 2 years. So many people get onboarded because they start understanding value of digital assets when you've been onboarded via starting to play these like really quick games, and therefore you then start paying to quickly level up in those games to catch up to some friends, or just to get to that next piece without having to wait, because we're very impatient as human beings. And then the next minute you're explaining to your wife or husband why you can't go out to dinner this week because you've spent all your discretionary funds on these digital assets. I think once you get there, it's a very fast hop, skip, and a jump to spending 100K on a monkey JPEG, in my opinion. And I really love that side of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a big hop, quite a large skip, and an even bigger jump. I would guess. I would estimate. That would be my estimation. But I like the thinking. Let's get into the second headline today. Well, actually, I don't know. Where did we go off on the gaming stuff so much? I I don't know how we got to the gaming stuff. Actually, it wasn't specifically.
My influence probably starting it off as a gaming discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought that we had a gaming headline after all of that, and we don't. So, I mean, technically, we just get back into the normal discussion. I mean, we saw the huge buy from one of the founders of Yuga Labs yesterday for 600 ETH of the zombie CryptoPunk $1.13 million. Kind of suggested that there would be more foolishness tomorrow. Today, what do we think that means, Legendary? What do you think that might be on someone's radar when you're at that level is the question? Because I think we know, the answer to this question, just for the audience who may be willing to contribute, is not your bags. Like, the answer is not the NFT that you bought yesterday and you hope that the founder of Yuga Labs comes in to buy off you for 2x. That is not the answer to the question. The question is, when you have that amount of capital, what types of things might you be looking at next? And that's an open question to anyone, what they think too. Legendary first.
Very good question. I mean, also the timing of the buy is quite interesting to observe, as well as the announcement that there's going to be follow-up foolishness on it. CryptoPunk's still a Yuga Labs asset after the acquisition, so if you look at that, it's still kind of shopping in house. And the next closest guest to that would be projects that have an affiliation with Otherside, because we know that Otherside definitely wants to onboard more games and more brands, and that has been teased in trailers, in images, in video content. So that probably would be the closest guess to that if you wanted to follow the hypothesis.
That is a very good point. I didn't think that, although that completely makes sense. I was thinking more along the lines of like, what are the elite level NFTs that people would want to purchase when they reach a particular point? And I was going down the route of the art, right? Like fidenzas, autoglyphs, things of that nature. But you're right. What's the point of doing that? He's got a mission in front of him, I think, which is keep supporting the ecosystem in some way. You can make very substantial purchases, which are both personally pleasing and simultaneously supportive of the ecosystem at the same time. So I think that actually makes way more sense than what I was thinking. Jack, your hand is raised. Would love to hear what you think, and then want to talk a little bit about the CryptoPunks run that this has started, but actually has been going on for a while. Jack first.
I really love just seeing him active in the space on Twitter again. It's just absolute legend. I think I was the same sort of thought process as you, B-Check, which is like a Squiggle, a Fidenza, some of those like high-end things. I did have a thought that with 12-fold, maybe sprinkling some of that into ordinals wouldn't be as big a leap as maybe people will think. I do think a Cryptoad will be there as well. I wouldn't be surprised if like some other meme ability ones, like maybe like a Crypto Dick, but will get thrown in there. But with ordinals, I think OCM Dimensions, on-chain Maxi Biz, but you've got to think reputationally as well. Obviously, he's not going to want to like damage that in any way. So I think he'll be very, very selective in ordinals, being it's like such a new space. But I think Squiggles is a definite. Fidenza's probably likely, and a couple others too.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely where your mind goes when you're thinking about it from a personal perspective. But I love the idea actually of just showering the other side kind of partnership collections with some love, because that would be so appreciated. I remember when Frank, it kind of reminds me of the opportunity that exists when Frank was moving over to ETH and just went absolutely ballistic. I can't remember. I literally added up all of the ETH he spent on just like promising ETH collections, which he clearly thought were good. And that bought, I mean, at a relatively high price, but that did buy a lot of goodwill. And I don't think that's, it's clearly not the same in this respect. Yuga don't need to do that because, and I think Frank had a very specific intention at that point in time, moving over from Solana to ETH. But I just, I think it was a nice play, and people definitely really liked it. Legendary, what do you think of that comparison?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I knew it when you started the analogy that we're gonna go down the Frank route. And even if you think about it as a, in Frank's case, like marketing goodwill purchase, what was it, like 100 ETH more 150, like 300K back then, something in that
That's a lot.
dimension, right? It's not, I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's not expensive for the amount of reach and goodwill that you get with it. And also keeping in mind that it's not money spent. Those assets don't go to zero the next day. So, and someone also wanted to connect those two dots. Someone also had a thread about Gordon Conan, the original Bored Ape founders, saying that, you know, most people who launched the project back then would have been more than happy to bank a couple mil and then just leave the space for good and not stay around and not build, and also not continue to be active once their company, like Yuga Labs did, grow into such a behemoth, and also obviously has new management and everything going on, but still having that level of commitment and activity, even if you say perfectly correctly that they don't need to buy the goodwill, and certainly Gordon Conner doesn't need to buy it out of goodwill, it's still a very noticeable play, and just will be perceived in an extremely positive way, no matter if it's going to be a more art heavy collection, if it's going to be more on the partner collection side of things from other side. It's definitely going to be noticed, and you know, we're proof of that. We're speaking about it.
I mean, I've spoken it into existence to such an extent that I really like the idea. Now, if he doesn't do this idea, then he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy if he's not doing this idea now. No, I'm only joking. That's completely unfair. It's his money. He can do whatever he likes with it. That I'm very pro freedom to transact in whatever way you like. A kind of knock-on effect, although it wasn't really a knock-on effect, was that there were all kinds of punk buys going on, but in the last 24 hours. But if you have been paying attention closely, or if you've been reading the snapshot every single day, or if you've been listening to our show every single day, you've noticed that there's been like a real uptick in CryptoPunk activity in the last 4-5 days, maybe even slightly longer than that. I remember my CryptoPunk flip back, I don't know, 7 to 10 days ago as well. That was, I think, part of it, although that person sold it for way too low for what it should have been. But the point is, there's been like this activity. And the question I had for you, Legendary, if you can remember back, or actually to anyone on the stage, if you can remember appropriately, I just want to check my instinct on this. There's been a few times in the past where, if I remember correctly, some of these moves and runs that have happened in other collections have always started with CryptoPunks moving. Like there can be periods of time where nothing really happens with CryptoPunks, and then every now and again they just sort of catch fire for a little bit in time. What do you remember about those previous times? And am I right to say that some of those previous runs have been instigated by CryptoPunks starting to catch fire?
I remember this to be absolutely correct. I can't pinpoint a specific date or even month when that happened, but I definitely remember talking about CryptoPunks being basically a foreshadowing indicator of other PFP projects to pump.
Yeah. And do you know what? A more specific behavior and look, guys, we've been saying the NFT trading market is back. I've been saying that for a couple of weeks. There's enough volatility in these collections for you to trade them quite nicely. Within CryptoPunks, I spoke about the flip that I made, I don't know, last week. There was another one you can see on the YouTube show, but there's this VR crazy hair red punk. This was bought for 88 ETH and sold for 97 ETH at 8 minutes later. No, hang on, 36 minutes, 12 minutes later. So like that behavior where people start flipping punks was always something I remember back from 2021 when things were like really moving. You could buy one, because basically what happens is the floor moves up. Say, I mean, last week we had a floor of about 43 ETH. The floor moves up to 46, say, but then you've got a bunch of punks at 46, which are not floor punks. There are certain punks which are considered to be floor punks and certain ones that are like a bit nicer than floor. So then what happens is that the ones at 46, which are considered not to be floor, just get bought up, not because anyone wants them, but because they're just not floor punks. So then everything just keeps getting repriced. And then it's just a cycle of everyone keeps buying the floor because the punks at the floor are not actually floor punks. And I don't know precisely when that stops, but I've just noticed even that behavior right now where people are buying punks, if not at floor, then close to floor. Well, actually, this is not even near the floor, right? This was bought for 88 ETH and sold for 97. So, but the point is, people are starting to think that there's this discrepancy between the floor and some of these other nicer ones, and therefore, if you buy a nicer one, you'll be able to flip it for higher because the floor is rising. Thoughts on that?
That's quite unique to the punks, because if you remember us talking about apes and apes behavior or market behavior in the bear market, we got to a point where, you know, trades that we deemed to be mid-rare to demand a significant premium suddenly were listed close to floor, very, very close to floor. But the trade resilience in the punks was still way, way higher, even in the bear market, because you have a completely different segment of bias slash investment hypothesis slash sophistication when it comes to analyzing the collection and the provenance of the punks, that all those four factors combined, in my opinion, did lead to that higher resilience when it came to specific traits in punks and to what constitutes a floor punk and what just doesn't. Plus the fact that you just have some mega whales in punks who easily can say, nope, this is underpriced, this is not a floor punk, I'm just going to buy it right now. And you don't have that in almost any other collection, really.
I love that point on trait resilience. It's not something I'd thought about explicitly, although everyone realized at the time, and you sense this like broad disappointment that there were certain, you know, aesthetically pleasing apes which were just in some respect like completely disrespected during that period of time when the price was declining, and people started to realize that those mid-rare NFTs were just not mid anymore. They were lower than people thought. But you're right that I think that the CryptoPunk ecosystem has greater trait resiliency, where particular traits will just be seen as, no, that absolutely cannot be near the floor. And to be honest, that's how I managed to trade mine, because when I saw that one was listed beneath the floor and it was a police hat a clown police hat, it was like that's just not supposed to be at the floor, and I knew that instantly, so I managed to just get it straight away. Really interesting point there. I like that a lot. Guys, we're going to get into the more broader discussion now. I like that we focused on some of the CryptoPunk stuff because I think that's a leading indicator sometimes. I like that we had a bit of a chat on gaming because everyone is obsessed with it right now, but we're going to get into the other collections that are moving and try to consider what might be going on there in just a second. But what we're going to do first is, as always, get into the Web3 roundup and the creator corner to get you up to speed with what else has been going on around the space. It does feel like there's a lot to keep up with at the moment. We're doing our best to do that. So, as always, it's in the snapshot up top. Number one, the Kungs ecosystem announced earlier than expected Prana launch. This is one of their tokens coming. And one of the friends of the show, Confusion, said that he thinks that Yoga Pets will get a Binance listing for their token. They're connected with and based in Hong Kong, like Memeland, and their niche is wellness, which is on the money for a token right now. Legendary spoke about this project a while ago, very kind of similar to Memeland in some respects. So interesting to note what's moving there. Number two, the UK releases stablecoin regulation plan. Nice to see the UK actually taking some action here, whereas other parts of the world are slacking. Next, Overlord announces the Portal coin, which is a universal gaming token, and you can register for the pre-sale at the moment. Again, very on trend with the gaming stuff. And next, 4K Protocol announces mint drops for IRL clothing. The company said that mint drops are the future of exclusive product releases, should combine the excitement of drops with the transparency and security of blockchain technology. I love everything to do with NFT lending and real world assets, so I'm intrigued by that. Getting into the creator corner, Artifact announced a creator challenge with Murakami NFT as a prize. That's very fun. That sounds very good. Next, Verse announces a new collection by Matt Delore, which is 25 works on November the 9th. Looks very cool. And finally, OpenAI announces GPTs tailored to specific tasks. They say that GPTs are a new way for anyone to create a tailored version of ChatGPT to be more helpful in their daily life at very specific tasks. So I thought that was pretty interesting from a creator perspective, and for all of us who are on the internet all the time, trying to be more productive, trying to be more successful. That's it from the Web3 roundup and the creator corner. Legendary. Let's get into that final headline where we're just looking at the general rally. Now, we've spoken about gaming, we've spoken about CryptoPunks. the general NFT market rally with Cryptodes, Mochaverse, On-Chain Monkey, Cool Cats, all up more or around 50%. What are your thoughts there? And then we're probably going to have to go to Jack on this, aren't we?
I think we have to go to Jack then. I know what Jack thinks. Jack wants to talk about yesterday. He heard you speak about your CryptoPunks flip 3 times in this show, and he's like, when is it my turn to share the story? And I can feel his anticipation. I think what we also see with projects pumping right now, though, on a more serious note, is that how we in SocialFi had that investment thesis that if Paradigm is backing something, then it's going to be good because Paradigm wants to make money on it. We kind of start to see a very similar thing with Animoca brands. Obviously, they did tremendously well with Mochaverse, with the loyalty program, with the digital ID and everything else that they've been announcing over the last month and that we talked about on the show. But also, I feel like as soon as Animoca now has a news that they are connected to Cool Cats or to any other brand in whatever way, that this gets the market excited. Now it's now the headline VC, the headline portfolio company that you want your brand to be connected to in a way, and that gives you just that extra exposure and that extra interest in the market right now.
Yeah, I love that connection. I haven't been around for multiple cycles, but I wonder whether there's always someone in each cycle that becomes the go-to person for one particular thing, and then any partnership with that person will send whichever partner just higher, by virtue of being connected with them. You're definitely right to that definitely happened for Paradigm for a period of time. I wonder whether that's still the case. Probably is, but that's obviously in a different sphere. In this NFT sphere, I think you're probably right that Animoca is certainly emerging as like, if not the best partner, but a premier partner, which can only be seen as encouraging for your ecosystem if you can secure that. Jack, what are your thoughts on the general across the board move up? I know you've got some more specific takes on the Ordinals ecosystem, but anything else too?
Yeah, thanks for throwing to me. I think the one thing, just to run back slightly to your idea of like, what does punks symbolize? Like when punks start ripping, what does that what normally happens? I think actually when punk starts ripping, a multitude of things can happen depending on the market cycle. Because when we're starting to hit a down market, you can see people trying to get into punks as, you know, just the like, this is going to be the last saving grace to NFTs. If there's going to be a survivor, it's going to be punks. And then you can see them when art starts to pump. It's like, okay, but I'm still into PFPs. I'm still into that collection ability of like, you know, having a project where there's a community behind it. It'll go there. And what I think we're seeing at this point is the trend to actually NFTs in general cycling up. I think this is probably the biggest indicator right now that the market's going to go up. And then what you do is you try and look at what trends are coming off the back of that. And I think for this cycle, you obviously we're talking a lot about gaming. I think for the traders, that's where I would look if I was a trader. Being that I am, you know, basically one of the biggest amounts of exit liquidity in the space in terms of my purchases normally is down only. I look more towards the long term, and that is where I think we are seeing a trend right now to projects that have basically stuck around for the past 2 years of down only. And what I mean by that is people who've genuinely been taking swings, have been active, even if it's led to downturns in their own projects. There's a ton of them that spring to mind. I think we're seeing pumps in some of them already. I think obviously OCM, that was my main thesis sort of, you know, about a month ago. And I've been speaking to anyone who will listen to me around the fact that I do think that they are going to be hugely successful. And we saw them at 1.3 yesterday. They're now at like 2.4, which I think is more like an 80-90% rip than the 50% that it was quoted at. And I think it was just really obvious to me because they spent over $1 million doing that transition from ETH to Bitcoin with their whole 9.5K collection. you just don't do that. And this was, like over a month ago where sentiment was at its lowest. And I think when you look at collections, who else have been making those swings in this market? And it can look in a multitude of different ways. Like it might just be that they're throwing resource at something that not many people have got eyes on. It might just be that they're hyperactive on X and just trying new things. Or it might even be that they've downsized and that they are just still actively trying to anticipate the market in a way where they just don't want to go anywhere. Like they still want to be around. So that's my sort of sense of what I'm looking at the moment. And obviously that worked out really well for anyone who bought off the back of the conversation on OCM yesterday at 1.3 ETH.
Absolutely, indeed. I think you mentioned a variety of factors there, which are quite important. People sticking around, people making an effort to keep trying new things, people maybe downsizing, reconfiguring, and evaluating what it is their main product offering or value proposition is going to be, and spending time in the challenging market to sort that out so that you can be more prepared for this type of market. Yeah, a variety of things across the board there that I thought was helpful. Legendary, what do you think is happening with this kind of bigger pump across the board?
In terms of its sustainability, or in what terms are you?
Yeah,
from what
both.
perspective?
Both. Like, what do you think this is a signal of? Like, people keep asking, "Are we back?" I've been talking about the market being back in the sense that you can make money trading if you want to now, if you are concentrating. Is that what we're moving into? Is this something temporary? And another interesting question is, as ETH is going up, the NFTs are going up, and we know that from history that might happen sometimes, but that doesn't happen too much. Like if ETH really wants to go up, then we could see
people want to get out of NFTs typically. And I think we are seeing a difference right now, which is partially driven by that gaming trend, because everyone wants their token allocation. So it's buying up those gaming projects, buying Animoca affiliated projects and others. In terms of the sustainability of it, when I hear NFT stats, I hear Sam in the back of my mind was on the show with us yesterday, and he said, volume definitely is up. We've been seeing that for weeks. However, if you look at the number of active participants in the market, being the number of wallets buying, selling, trading, it's still at a very, very, very low point. So the conclusion is it's not new money, new capital flowing into the market. It's more or less the same people just deploying more funds into the existing market. And if you talk to some of the projects, well, like onboarding, the Web3 core communities, also been taking a lot of calls around gaming over the last couple of weeks. And all of them are focusing, a significant amount of them are focusing on onboarding the Web3 core community now. And if they have a Web2 community from other games, because they have a traditional background, they say that's a second priority for them to onboard them sometime later next year. So the question then really is, how sustainable will that anticipation or that momentum that we have right now be when we're like still selling our JPEGs to one another in that very same space? And yes, we have a very bullish narrative on gaming. Yes, we have the excitement that Sammy has mentioned around the ETF approvals. Contrasting, once they go through, people want to have ETH and they probably will want to take some of the profits in NFTs. But for me, like to fully be back into a bull cycle, it also would require to have a significant influx of new people entering the space as traders, whether that's, traditional gamers joining us or other people suddenly getting excited about crypto again. But before that, I would still be a bit hesitant, would be more on the side to also like take profits. And, hearing NFT stats with that fact on the wallets, with the amount of wallets that are trading, is that one caveat that I have in the back of my mind, despite all of the excitement that I also feel right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly pro people taking profits whenever they can. People should do that actively. But my statistic or indicator is maybe going off something else. We've spoken about our numbers. Like modern market numbers are at all-time highs right now. Like we had 150 live yesterday. We had 140 live yesterday. Look, maybe they are the same people that were around before, but there's definitely more people than we had listening to us last week or the week before that. And now maybe that's just a product of us growing and being good and the word getting out that this is a useful place to spend some time every day. But I have also seen numbers from the other shows, and Clemente from the morning show shared yesterday that, and they've shared routinely, like they can really feel. And when you do this thing like hundreds and hundreds of times, I mean, we've already done it about 200 times, I think. They've done it probably in the thousands, frankly. You can feel like when the attention is there, what it feels like and what the numbers mean. And I think they've said the numbers are coming out hot at the moment. And so I think it's time to stay locked in. I said we should be locked in. I think we should stay locked in. That's my final concluding point. Guys, it's been a great discussion as always. We have unfortunately run out of time for today's show. If you are in any doubt, we do this every single day, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST. We are live on X. We are also live on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day. Hope you enjoyed. Take care, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.